I wanted to be involved in this video to recognise somebody I regarded as a great man.
I think one of David's great strengths was that he had the ability to see the big picture, but also he was very good at looking after the individual. Many of us are very good at one or the other, but not both. But David encompassed the lot.
He cared deeply about us. And it showed every time we went to see him.
Well, I think that the challenge for a young doctor, or relatively young doctor like that, was that he was hands-on in a way that we who were making policy, or even the senior medical men, were not. And I think that gave him a humanity and an understanding and a recognition of the social and personal, not just the medical problems. And that's the importance about treating this disease, was to recognise the social and individual problems as distinct from the particular disease problem.
But you can add to that, he was the first one in the world to describe the seroconversion illness, and he was so modest about it. He would never tell you what he'd done, and yet he'd done so much.
Oh, I first met David in 1983 when I was a GP in Darlinghurst. Yeah, I remember we had to do a bit of a re-education job on David. He wasn't all that aware of the sexual mores or the cultural mores of downtown Darlinghurst.
David was looking after a woman who'd acquired HIV from a blood transfusion just after the birth of her child. He suggested we might, test the child for HIV. That led to the first ever identification of HIV acquired, well, it wasn't even called HIV then, but the virus acquired through breastfeeding. And so I was acknowledged as the person who made that discovery, but I wouldn't have made it without David's input.
He's also an inspirational person, so that the people around him were inspired to do things, and they will continue to be inspired, and it's thanks to him.
I often wondered when I talked to him how this great man hadn't been affected by what he'd done. But that was David.
So David helped us make clear what the real problems were and what the questions were that we had to answer, and he showed us the way we had to go.
He and others, of course, did a lot to persuade us that we had to have a bipartisan approach to this disease. We couldn't allow it to wreck policy as it had done in the United States.
And we got a bipartisan approach.
David Cooper always talked about, sisters, I'm a good Jewish man, and you and I, the Sisters of Charity and this good Jewish man, we need to get together and we need to support each other. He was such an advocate.
He was such an important part of our lives. He saved mine, he saved so many people's lives.
I'd say right man, right place, right time. We're lucky we had him. I can't imagine the AIDS epidemic without David Cooper.